Hello everyone, this is Darion GNB here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Invincible Season 4. Invincible Season 4 aired from March to April of 2026. The show's long-running tradition of pushing Mark's physical and mental fortitude continues, as he's forced to deal with his more ruthless tendencies and how appropriate they may or may not be, as well as being thrusted headfirst into a war with the Viltrum Empire. Another year means another season of Invincible. Fuck, it feels so good to say that. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, watching most of this season was just me jonesing and waiting to get to the good shit so we could wrap it up. Not because I thought it was bad or poorly done, hell, I think the opposite. But more so because my favorite section of the comic, as well as one of my new favorite antagonists, is gonna go the fuck off next season, and I cannot wait. A lot of things happened this season of Invincible. The aforementioned Viltrumite War, and best villain in the comic being established and introduced, as well as so much more juicy and delectable shit that I could not get enough of. Episode 4 is not included in that bunch. I love how the story dove into the central theme of having extreme resolutions, brought upon by the feeling of necessity, and the potential drawbacks that comes from that. I don't think this show has ever lost me when it comes to depicting these ideals amongst our various cast of characters, and giving us a lot of very interesting character-driven conflicts. Whether it be Mark allowing himself to actually take an innocent life for the first time, Thetis' usage of the Scourge virus on his own people, Titan's whole subplot with the Order, Nolan's entire character, as well as them planting the seeds for all the stuff that's going to come later with Robot, and no, I'm still not calling him Rex. I really liked how this was explored throughout the season. It's like a looming thread that wraps its way around the heads of so many characters. I love it. As far as pacing goes, I think this one was pretty good. It's relatively simple, with the first half focusing on the characters as well as the build-up to the war, and the latter half focusing solely on the Viltrumite War itself. Which gives the season a really good sense of momentum as things continuously escalate to being more grand and epic, albeit with one very boring caveat. I was really excited to see this original story with Damien Darkblood, as he's a neat character that I didn't initially mind seeing more of, but unfortunately it's really brought down by the obnoxiously slow dialogue scenes, unnecessarily drawn out bits, overly long speeches and monologues. And this show committed the cardinal sin of giving us a version of Satan voiced by Bruce Campbell himself, and making him suck.
Torment of the vile does not prepare one for war. We must draw upon our memories of old.
This season also does wonders for the greater world building of the Invincible universe, both on and off Earth. Despite the Hell episode being a drag, the stuff they established with Hell, as well as going over why there are kaijus and stuff roaming around on the planet, I found to be really cool. With most of it, we get a lot more of the interesting world building when it comes to all the space stuff though, with an episode of Alan and Nolan gathering threats to the Viltrumites, as well as the history behind the Viltrumites in general being greatly expanded upon. I love that the show took the liberty in expanding upon the amount of damage the Scourge virus brought to Viltrum. Despite their heinous ways, the show gives the effects of the virus so much more weight to where you can properly see where their motivation and drive stems from, and even more so when seeing Argal's death, and how Regent Thrag sends them down an even more vindictive and destructive path as time goes on.
Did you just make me feel bad about your planet of genocidal maniacs almost getting wiped out?
Okay, I wouldn't say all of that, but it does help expand the Viltrumites, especially Thrag, from just being a bunch of power-hungry bad guys. As far as the Earth stuff is concerned, I'm really intrigued by their decision to focus so heavily on the Order, a group that wasn't even that prominent in the main comic if I'm not mistaken. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy all the stuff with Machine Head, Liu, Titan, all of them. But I am wondering how the show is going to tackle these things going forward. I struggle to see how well these guys are going to fit in, considering how disconnected they are from the grand overall Invincible story. Regardless, the season does do a solid job with its cast of characters. Mark's journey this season was once again pretty solid. Seeing how much this point in Mark's life is taking a toll was really interesting. But if I'm being honest, when looking at how they wrap things up with the blue suit arc, I can't help but feel like the show dropped the ball in a few minor areas when it comes to this particular story. I was having a convo with my friends about this, and I couldn't fully put my finger on why I wasn't as favorable towards the show's depiction of this arc, until I realized the reason was probably because Mark didn't feel as angry or intense or aggressive as he did in the comic. Put in the live bits. Which the show does a decent job at, but in regards to Mark, when he leaves the blue and goes back to the OG, it didn't really feel like Mark's mind and spirit was tested as intensely as it was in the comics, at least for me. The Blue Suit era is supposed to be Invincible's answer to the symbiote arc for Spider-Man, and one of the ways the comic showed this was Mark's increasing anger and intensity. His quickness to resort to killing and threatening people has been toned down a tad in the show, with Mark still showing a lot of restraint before he does certain things. The scene with Russ being a good enough example, I think, which I guess works for the show, but I just kind of prefer how the comic went about depicting this point in Mark's life. Or maybe I'm just bitter that they didn't utilize this suit at all. Throughout the latter half of the season, Mark's character progression kind of halts a bit, but I do adore where we ended things with him being the unintentional savior of the Viltrum Empire and planet Earth in general. Mark's not the only character going through it, though. I love how much they're dragging out Nolan's development. Seeing the regret he's come to form from his heinous, despicable, and diabolical actions, and the lengths he goes to try and fix things was pretty sweet. I loved how in the space episode with Alan, as they go from planet to planet, you can feel the regret he has for all the damage he's caused. The show is doing a great job at giving Nolan's development a really slow burn. Put in the clip. The confrontation I was most looking forward to this season was between Nolan and Debbie, and they do not disappoint. She lays into his ass in the exact way I knew she would. This confrontation between her and Nolan was long overdue, as she's right about literally everything she's saying. It seems like they are in fact building to the two getting back together, and all I hope is that they really take their time building these two back up, instead of having it be so quick like in the comics. The fact that the scene of them leaving isn't immediately followed by the two going to bump uglies does give me a bit of hope though. I as well thought Oliver's role was pretty well handled. The most amount of development he gets is his growing relationship with his father, which I think was executed brilliantly well. I'm so glad they acknowledged Andressa, and it was sweet seeing the two come together after how reasonably rough things started out for them. Everything with Eve I did think was handled pretty well. There's gonna be a lot of people throwing bitch fits over the whole abortion thing, but I love how it was treated as this heavy and emotionally draining experience that several people have gone through. Outside of that though, Eve didn't do too much, which is a bit disappointing. I might have said this in my last video, but it is a bit lame how little Eve matters as the series continues. That is kind of how it is for a while in the comics too, but the show did way more with Eve in the first 2 seasons than she did in the last 3. She kind of is just Mark's girlfriend now. There to be a supportive ear to his laundry list of depressed exposition dumps. They might as well fucking live on that rooftop with how much time they spend up there. Grand Regent Thrag. Despite only appearing prominently in the latter half of the season, with the entire first half just giving us mere crumbs of him, which helps makes his big showcase and display of power towards the end of the season all the more impressive. The motherfucker does indeed live up to the hype. And I'm really glad they did it this way, because it establishes Thrag as a very different kind of threat compared to someone like Conquest. Conquest is a wild, untamed animal. Meanwhile, I like how Thrag has this more elegant and ethereal presence about him. From the way he speaks and moves, the way he fights as an almost immovable wall that can strike back with the force of 50 hurricanes. Thrag is a really interesting villain to me because he has far more dimension than most of the Viltrumites, where his devotion to carrying on the deceased Emperor Argal's teachings and the cult-like system he and the others were indoctrinated into for centuries gives him this tragic air as a villain, especially when seeing how far that devotion will take him in the future. Thrag's introduction this season was fantastic, and I'm so glad they pulled him off effectively. It made him a different kind of intimidating threat than that of Conquest, and trust me, I'll get to that demon in just a sec. But, guess what? It's time to talk about the animation. There really isn't much for me to say because, to be frank, I'm kind of just used to this show's animation being relatively inconsistent. If we're going to continue to get seasons of this show every year, we need to straight up abandon the idea of this animation being anything more than just okay. And it's not like the animation is always terrible or anything, but it, as well as the art direction in general, is a bit bland to look at. There are a lot of shots that look rather flat and dull. The detail for those like dinosaurs could be a bit better in my opinion. I ain't asking for this shit, but are a few extra scales a bit too much to ask? Probably, what the hell do I know? Animation does not look easy. The show consistently does pop off with the smoother movements and more fluid visuals and such, namely for the big battles, whether it be Mark, Nolan, and Thetis destroying Viltrum, which was a sequence I really enjoyed. That shit was cool as hell. Whenever Thrag makes motherfuckers look like nothing but fodder to him, or the Conquest rematch. This absolute monster takes a while to go down. His rematch with Mark was absolutely incredible. The intensity and veracity of their battle is felt with every hit, slam, and strike, and then we get that bit. Conquest disemboweling Mark is disgustingly cool. I'm not that much of a squeamish person by any means. Like, there are things I wince and look away at and stuff, but generally, gore doesn't really affect me too much. I say that to emphasize that when I watched this scene, I genuinely felt sick. This shit was diabolical. The rest of the season action-wise is kind of just okay. The battles in space with the Viltrumites are cool, but after a bit, the constants of having motherfuckers get slapped back and forth around the vacuum of space does get a bit boresome, and there are a few more moments of PNGs being moved across the screen, which I'm just taking as a staple of the show at this point. It's too damn funny. The animation once again is just fine. This was another really good season of Invincible, and with the ending, we're officially halfway done with the Invincible story, and shit is just gonna get crazier from here. So, if you agree or disagree with anything I've said in this video, let me know right down there in the comments below. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. This has been Darion GNB, and take care.